The cage is not iron. It is not cold. It is not harsh. It does not rattle with the groans of captivity. It is warm, lush, lined with soft fabrics and glowing screens, filled with comforts that whisper sweet lullabies to the soul. A man sits inside, legs crossed, eyes glazed. He does not rattle the bars, because there are no bars to see. Only routines. Only mild conveniences. Only the illusion of freedom. This is not dystopia. This is suburbia. It is quiet here. He wakes up, not with dread, but with a dull ache. The ache of having nothing to fight for. His muscles atrophy not from injury, but from disuse. His mind is sharp enough to scroll, dull enough not to question. He remembers once feeling fire in his blood, a wild restlessness that pulled at his ribs. But the fire has cooled. Now he runs on calendar reminders, refined sugars, and podcasts that simulate the feeling of knowing things. He is not unhappy. That would be too dramatic. He is fine, and that is precisely the problem. Nietzsche would not call him free. He would call him tamed. What happens to a man whose edges have been sanded down, whose passions have been filed away until he is smooth, agreeable, productive? What happens when danger, once part of his very nature, is pathologized, medicated, or moralized out of him? There is a kind of danger that is not criminal, not chaotic, not destructive to others, but dangerous in the way fire is dangerous to a dark room. It brings light, heat, movement. It awakens. Nietzsche's call to live dangerously was not about rebellion for its own sake. It was about waking the sleeping God within, the animal you buried beneath politeness, beneath compliance, beneath your curated digital persona. But look around. What does modernity reward? Safety, predictability, agreement. You can work a job that kills you slowly and be praised for your loyalty. You can bite your tongue every day and be called mature. You can suppress the rage inside you and be labeled well-adjusted. The beast within you has not died. It has been sedated. And yet, some nights when the noise dies down and the screens turn black, it stirs, faintly, a pulse in the chest, a low growl behind the ribs. It remembers what you were before they taught you to smile all the time. That presence, that forgotten beast, it is still there. It watches, it waits, it wants out. And the question Nietzsche would demand of you is not, how do you stay safe? But rather, how long will you let yourself rot in a cage just because it is comfortable? There is a mistake we often make when speaking of danger. We picture destruction, bloodied fists, rebellion for its own sake. But Nietzsche's ideal of danger was something deeper, something more sacred. To him, the truly dangerous individual was not a brute, but a force of nature, not reckless, but untamed, not evil, but uncontainable. This is the fire that modern man has lost, the creative, transgressive, vital force that burns through lies and illusions, the fire that refuses to kneel before comfort. And Nietzsche knew this well. To awaken such fire is to remember that you are not made to be docile. The foundation of his thought rests on a searing truth. Life is not meant to be safe. It is meant to be powerful. At the core of this power lies what he called the will to power, a phrase too often misunderstood. It is not the will to dominate others. It is not some crude lust for control. Rather, it is the internal drive to expand, to overcome, to elevate oneself, to become what one is capable of becoming. It is a metaphysical engine, an inner pressure to evolve, to climb, to break, to suffer, to grow. It is the thing in you that doesn't settle, that refuses to accept stasis, that dares to say, I can be more. And yet, modern life conspires to numb this force. We are trained to seek peace, not power. We are told to manage our desires, not sharpen them. The will to power becomes the will to comply, to maintain, to preserve. Nietzsche despised this flattening of the human spirit. He called it the morality of the herd, a morality that praises meekness, humility, and obedience, not because these are virtues, but because they make individuals easier to control. He saw it in religion, in politics, in polite society, the worship of weakness disguised as goodness. He did not preach chaos. He preached transformation. Nietzsche's dangerous man is not a savage. He is a creator, a sculptor of values, a refuser of inherited truths. He does not destroy for fun. He destroys because the old gods are dead and something must take their place. He is dangerous not because he harms, but because he cannot be owned. You say a good cause will sanctify even war? I say a good war sanctifies every cause. In that single sentence, Nietzsche flips morality on its head. He doesn't glorify violence. He glorifies the inner warrior who is willing to suffer, to struggle, and to walk alone in pursuit of something higher. This is the man who climbs the mountain while others sit at the base and mock, who dares to look inward and confront the chaos there, who rejects easy answers, because he knows that only through forging his own path can he become real. To be dangerous, in the Nietzschean sense, is to be untouchable by approval. It is to not need applause, permission, or permission slips from authority. It is to stand alone, burning, and still remain intact. And this is the tragedy of the velvet cage. It doesn't steal your strength. It seduces you into laying it down willingly. The Nietzschean ideal demands you reclaim it, that you stop looking for someone to follow, that you become the authority in your life, not to dominate others, but to no longer be a stranger to yourself. Because beneath the conditioning, beneath the programming, beneath the posture of the civilized man, there is still a flame. And the world does not need more obedient men. It needs those who have the courage to become dangerous again. Not in rage, not in rebellion, but in presence, in power, in becoming what the world no longer dares to create, a sovereign soul. It does not happen all at once. There is no single moment when the fire goes out, no dramatic collapse, no sudden betrayal of the self. The death of fire is slower, quieter, more polite. It happens gradually, over years of subtle negotiations between your soul and your surroundings. It begins with a trade. You give up wildness for security. You give up dreams for deadlines. You stop chasing the edges of yourself and start managing impressions. You become reasonable, practical, employed, and the world smiles at you for it. You are rewarded, you are promoted, you are seen as successful. But every reward is another chain, velvet-wrapped and gold-plated. You find yourself praised for how well you tolerate the intolerable, for how seamlessly you've conformed. And the tragedy is not that you have become something else. It's that you've become less of yourself. Nietzsche watched this happen with prophetic disgust. He saw a world sprinting toward comfort and away from danger, not because it had overcome suffering, but because it had grown too weak to face it. He spoke of the last man, a future archetype of humanity who no longer seeks greatness, no longer dreams, no longer dares. The last man doesn't revolt. He yawns. He is content to be safe, entertained, and numb. He avoids discomfort like a virus. He believes peace is the pinnacle of existence, unaware that peace without passion is merely a soft death. The last man does not live, he endures. And Nietzsche's warning was not just about Susityrun. It was about you, the individual, the man who once had teeth, once had hunger, once looked at the world not as something to comply with, but something to conquer. Where did he go? He was drowned. Slowly. In policies. In politeness. In convenience. We are raised in systems that prioritize obedience over courage. Classrooms that reward compliance over originality. Workplaces that incentivize silence over integrity. And if you do not conform, you are labeled difficult, troubled, toxic. The herd turns on those who do not walk in line. It is not malice, it is inertia. The system wants you to be smooth, agreeable, efficient, because sharp edges are dangerous. Passion is unpredictable. Sovereignty is unmanageable. So we are taught to fear our own power, told to suppress our aggression, to pathologize ambition, to medicate restlessness. We are told that the things that make us vital are symptoms of a disorder. And so, the beast within you does not die. It falls asleep, not out of choice, but out of exhaustion. Modernity does not kill you with swords. It kills you with screens, with soul-draining routines, with culture that entertains but never awakens, with ideologies that promise equality but demand mediocrity. And perhaps the most tragic part, it gives you just enough stimulation to keep you from noticing the hunger. Because make no mistake, the hunger remains. You feel it when you catch yourself staring out the window with your fists clenched for no reason. You feel it when your skin tingles at the thought of running, fighting, building, breaking, doing something that matters. You feel it when your life is technically fine, but your soul is screaming for more. Nietzsche would call this the agony of the restrained spirit, a life lived in shadows, a man who has forgotten how to roar. And yet the systems will always praise your silence. They will tell you it's good to be content, kind, polite, and they're not wrong. But only if it is a choice, not a cage. Because a lion that chooses to be still is a king, but a lion that forgets how to hunt is a house cat. The fire hasn't died. It has been buried under years of compromise, years of smiling when you should have spoken, years of nodding when you should have walked away. The fire is still in there. And Nietzsche's voice, echoing from a century past, is not merely a whisper of warning. It is a summons to reclaim what you were before the world taught you to sit still. What lies beneath the polished surface of your personality? Beneath the rehearsed smiles, the social scripts, the curated image of who you are. If you were to peel back everything polite and presentable, what would you find? Nietzsche suspected, and Jung confirmed, that you would not find peace. You would find chaos. There is a part of you that you have spent your whole life trying not to see. The part that doesn't care about what's appropriate. The part that seethes when you're wronged. That hungers when you're denied. That whispers thoughts into your mind at night that make you ashamed in the morning. It is not evil. It is not corrupt. But it is untamed. And you were taught to fear it. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the collection of impulses, instincts, and rejected parts of the self that we cast into darkness. But Nietzsche hinted at it first, though he used different language. He spoke of the abyss, the part of the human psyche that stares back when you look too deeply into yourself. And what if the key to power is not to suppress this darkness, but to integrate it? We are told to be good people, but good often means harmless. And in that quest to be inoffensive, we exile the very parts of ourselves that give us life: passion, anger, lust, assertiveness, confidence, hunger. And in their place, we install facades, smiling masks that help us navigate polite society, but starve the soul behind them. The tragedy is this: you cannot selectively numb. When you suppress your rage, you also suppress your capacity for love. When you kill your ambition, you kill your creativity. When you bury your pain, you also bury your potential. The shadow is not a curse. It is a reservoir of raw, vital energy. And Nietzsche's dangerous man is not someone who rejects the shadow, but someone who walks straight into it and makes it his ally. This is not therapy. This is war. An inner war. A confrontation between the man you pretend to be and the one you actually are. But here is the paradox. You cannot become whole by only embracing the light. You must also descend. And this descent is terrifying because the abyss does not flatter you. It shows you everything you are not. Every betrayal, every cowardice, every time you shrank instead of stood. But it also shows you what you could become if you were willing to stop lying to yourself. Nietzsche's Overman, the ideal human, the next step in our evolution, is not some cold, perfect machine. He is the one who has passed through fire and emerged forged. He has seen his own capacity for madness and chosen to dance with it rather than deny it. He has looked into the abyss and not flinched. And make no mistake, the abyss will test you. It will ask, what do you actually believe when no one is watching? Who are you when you're not performing for the world? What would you do if you no longer cared about approval? To become dangerous again is to answer those questions without apology, not to become cruel, but to become capable, whole, undivided. It is the man who has faced his rage that can wield it wisely. It is the man who knows his jealousy that can keep it from corrupting him. It is the man who knows how deeply he can hate, who also knows how fiercely he can love. The danger is not in having a shadow. The danger is in pretending you don't. And that's why Nietzsche's philosophy cuts so deep. He didn't want followers. He wanted fire breathers, individuals who were willing to suffer the pain of becoming real. He saw the danger of repressing everything primal in us, and he knew that without danger, without intensity, without confrontation, there could be no transformation. You are not a mistake. You are not broken. You are just unfinished. You are a chaotic, brilliant, terrifying organism capable of tremendous cruelty and transcendent love. The path forward is not to amputate parts of yourself to fit into society's idea of good. It is to become so fully yourself that the world has no choice but to reckon with your presence. So go into the abyss, not to drown, but to emerge. Because the fire you're missing is not outside you. It's buried inside the parts of yourself you were told to fear. And if you can reclaim those parts, if you can hold the chaos without being consumed by it, you will become something more than civilized. You will become whole. You will become sovereign. You will become dangerous. There comes a point when theory must ignite into action, when the reading, reflecting, brooding in silence must give way to something sharper, something with teeth. The transformation from a docile man to a dangerous one is not merely internal. It must leave marks, not on others, but on your life, on your habits, on the way you walk into a room. To become dangerous again is not to lash out. It is to stand up. It is to become a man who is no longer ruled by fear or deluded by compromise. A man who does not live reactively, waiting for orders, waiting for cues, waiting for someone to tell him what he's allowed to be. It is the reawakening of a sovereign presence, forged in the crucible of pain, silence, and self-confrontation. And yes, there is pain. There is always pain in becoming, especially when you begin to dismantle the lie you've carefully built to survive in this world. The question is no longer, should I? But how do I begin? You begin where you are weakest. Nietzsche's version of danger wasn't about outward force. It was about the inner capacity to bear weight, to handle truth, to look suffering in the eye and say, "You do not define me." The dangerous man isn't one who avoids pain. He turns it into muscle. So ask yourself, what truths have I been avoiding? What comforts have become my shackles? Who am I performing for? What would I do differently if I knew no one would come to save me? Because no one is coming. And this realization isn't nihilistic. It's liberating. When you realize there is no savior, you are free to become one. For yourself, for your future, for the part of you still locked in that velvet cage, pounding on the walls, screaming to be let out. This is the metamorphosis Nietzsche pointed toward, the rise of the Übermensch, the Overman. Not a superior man in the way of status or wealth, but one who has transcended the programming of the herd, one who has buried the old gods, including the god of safety, and carved a new altar from his own blood and vision. To live dangerously, in practice, is to become radically responsible for your own becoming. It means saying no when silence would have kept you safe, leaving the job that drains your soul, starting the project that terrifies you, training your body until it reflects the discipline of your mind, reading until your ignorance burns, speaking until your voice shakes, and then steadying it. And perhaps more importantly, it means facing your addictions, not just to substances, but to approval, to distraction, to mediocrity. Every man who has become tame has, in some way, made peace with being less than he is. And every dangerous man you admire, whether philosopher, warrior, artist, leader, has at some point walked away from comfort and toward fire. This is not about becoming a beast. It's about becoming conscious of your beast and choosing to ride it rather than cage it. You must rewild yourself, not by fleeing into chaos, but by reclaiming your intensity. Intensity in how you speak, how you train, how you think. Intensity in how you love, because this is what modernity fears the most. Not violence, but the fully alive man. The man who cannot be bought, sedated, manipulated. The world has systems for rebels. It has prisons for criminals, but it has no defense against the sovereign individual. The man who knows who he is, what he stands for, and what he will no longer allow. Nietzsche was not offering a lifestyle. He was issuing a challenge. He was saying, stop waiting for permission. Stop diluting your power. Stop seeking to be liked and start seeking to be real. Tear down the scaffolding. Burn the mask. Let the fire breathe. The velvet cage will still be there, polished, comfortable, whispering that it's safer to just stay where you are. But if you've made it this far, you already know. You don't belong in there anymore. You don't need more rules. You need a sword, not to strike others, but to cut away what is false. That is the heart of the Nietzschean ideal. Not rebellion, not rage, creation. metamorphosis, danger born of discipline. And if you are willing to suffer the death of who you were, you may yet earn the right to be reborn as what you truly are, not a tame man, not a good man, but a dangerous one. There will come a night, maybe soon, when you'll feel it again. Not a thought, not a plan, a pulse, subtle at first, a low thrum behind the ribs, like a drumbeat coming from deep underground. You'll be standing in line, or lying awake, or staring at your reflection, and something ancient will stir. Something true. The forgotten beast. Not angry, not violent, just awake. It will not ask your permission. It does not need words. It will simply rise, reminding you of what you used to be before the world named you, tamed you, taught you to fear your own voice. And in that moment, you will have a choice. Will you hush it again, like you've done 1,000 times before? Or will you listen? Will you turn back to the comforts that kill slowly, smiling as they drain you? Or will you take the first step toward fire? Because that fire is not gone. It is coiled in your gut. Waiting. It has waited through your compromises, your apologies, your pretending. It has watched you shrink, submit, defer, delay, and it has never stopped hoping you'd finally wake up. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming real. To live with danger in your bones, not as menace, but as presence. To walk into the world not needing to explain yourself. To speak and mean it. To act and own it. To feel and not flinch. The dangerous man does not seek chaos. He becomes the stillness at its center. Not because he is fearless, but because he is whole. And now, in this moment, perhaps for the first time, you remember. You were never meant to sit quietly in the audience. You were never made to be predictable. You were not put here to die a slow, polite death. You were made to burn. So stand, break the lock, step out of the velvet cage, because the world doesn't need more safe men. It needs those who dare to become dangerous again.